Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tearing into a really compelling stack of source materials. Specifically, we're looking at the narrative inside Rachel Hawkins' novel, The Storm. And our mission here isn't just to, summarize a fictional true crime story.
No, not at all.
We're trying to unravel 40 years of deep coastal history. It's all centered on this very famous murder case from 1984 that just, it refuses to stay buried.
And it comes roaring back 4 decades later.
Exactly. We're trying to look past the headlines to see how a scandal, one that was supposedly settled, can still control the lives, psychologically and financially, of an entire town.
And of that community, St. Medard's Bay, Alabama, is practically a character in itself, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
What's so fascinating right from the jump is how the environment itself sets the entire tone. I mean, you get this picture of a paradise, right? Sugar white sands, clear green water.
A perfect tourist spot.
But it's also perpetually, violently battered by hurricanes. The very thing that gives it life, the tourism, the beauty, is also its most deadly threat.
And the sources we have for this deep dive, they're not straightforward. We have memoir excerpts, we have present-day observations from a character named Geneva, historical letters.
Right. It gives you all these shifting perspectives. So it's not a simple true crime story. It's this complex tapestry of survival, of secrets, betrayal.
A multi-generational saga.
That's the perfect word for it.
Okay, so let's just unpack that central tension right away, because it's what drives the whole story.
Let's do it.
The main event.
Yeah.
1984, Hurricane Marie, and the murder of Landon Fitzroy.
The governor's son, part of the, quote, Alabama Kennedys.
Right, a political dynasty. And the person linked to him is a local girl, Lo Bailey. She gets accused of the crime and is forever branded this scarlet woman, the scorned teenage mistress.
Even though she was acquitted.
Even though she was acquitted. So fast forward 40 years, it's 2025, and 2 people show up at the Rosalie Inn. They're there to write the definitive book on the case, probably hoping to cash in on the whole true crime boom.
But what they actually do is unlock this generational curse that was just, hiding in plain sight the whole time.
Yeah. It's the perfect catalyst, isn't it? The past isn't just being revisited.
No, it's being activated. Activated by the really desperate needs of the people in the present, and the inn, which survived that original storm, becomes the stage for the final reckoning.
Exactly. So let's jump right into 2025 and meet Geneva, the woman who's sort of reluctantly holding the keys to this whole legacy.
Perfect.
So Geneva is running the Rosalie Inn. It used to be called the Shipwreck Inn and the Sand Dollar Inn before that.
A lot of history in that building.
A ton. And the sources make it crystal clear that she is just drowning. Physically, emotionally, and definitely financially. She's constantly battling what the novel calls innkeeper brain.
And let's be clear, innkeeper brain isn't just normal stress.
No.
It's a specific, crushing psychological state. It's this hyper-focused condition of just acute financial panic.
Yeah, she's obsessed with the details, right?
Yeah.
How do we get more guests? Does our Instagram suck? Should I hire a social media person?
And if I do, how on earth am I supposed to pay them? But the real problem, the thing underpinning all of it, is this mountain of debt.
3 maxed out credit cards.
And the huge non-negotiable cost of caring for her mother, Ellen, who has early onset Alzheimer's and lives at this expensive facility called Hope House.
And the sources really emphasize that she's completely alone in this. Her ex-boyfriend, Chris.
Ugh, Chris.
He just washed his hands of the whole thing, called the inn a bad investment, and just left, leaving her totally isolated and responsible for all of it.
That isolation, that desperation, is so vital to understanding her moral calculus later on. She isn't a bad person, but her need is it's overwhelming. You see her inner monologue where she basically justifies her willingness to get involved in this predatory true crime thing.
I remember the line, worrying about the morality of the whole thing is for people who don't have 3 maxed out credit cards.
And a repayment plan with the IRS, exactly. When you're facing that kind of pressure, morality becomes a luxury you just can't afford.
So right on cue, Salvation arrives, and it's dressed up as a true crime author.
Of course it is.
This booking from August Fletcher, a writer from California, feels like this immediate, tangible lifeline.
Yeah.
He emails about a long-term stay, maybe a month, maybe until September.
And we really need to pause on the money here because it's a huge deal.
It is.
So Rosalie Inn's rates are super low, like $200 a night. Other places nearby are starting at $500.
Right, but she can't charge that. The place is old, it's run down, she's in debt.
And August just immediately offers to pay double her rate. He promises $400 a night for an indefinite period.
That one booking changes everything for her in an instant. She's already doing the math. This could pay down a credit card.
And most importantly, secure a couple more months for Mom at Hope House. That's the priority.
And Augustus says he's researching a book on local history, specifically Hurricane Marie in 1984 and the murder of Landon Fitzroy. And Geneva just kind of swallows her discomfort for the sake of survival.
But that initial relief it immediately turns into this palpable tension with the surprise arrival of the second guest.
Lo Bailey.
Gloria Bailey, yeah. The woman at the center of the scandal, the infamous local girl accused of the murder 40 years ago. Now she's back at the scene of the crime.
And what a figure she is. The sources use this incredible phrase to describe her, the 20th century Hester Prynne in a Duran Duran t-shirt.
It's perfect. It's this perfect snapshot of a woman who was publicly shamed for, a sexual transgression, but who survived it with this veneer of 80s pop rebellion, the Scarlet Woman, who got away with it legally but never escaped the judgment.
And now, 40 years later, she's back. She's down on her luck, working in a nursing home.
And her motivation is so modern. She was listening to all these true crime podcasts and realized that if anyone was going to monetize her life story, it should be her. She needed a payday. So she approached August.
Right. And August, he sees narrative gold, the accused murderess, telling her own story, right there at the scene of the crime.
It's a jackpot.
So he immediately agrees to double the rate again. He'll pay $800 a night for 2 rooms.
And that decision right there tells you he's not just paying for a place to stay, he's paying for access, for exclusivity.
Lowe's presence literally saves the Rosalie Inn financially, but it's a salvation that's bought with the town's darkest secrets.
And Lowe, unlike August, she immediately gets the history of the place. She even corrects Geneva on the town's name.
Saint Medard.
Patron saint of hurricanes. She tells Geneva that in the local lore, Saint Medard is who you pray to when you want the storm to spare you, or when you want it to kill your enemy.
That is a chilling detail. It says so much about the town's relationship with violence.
And then, even more significantly, Lowe reveals she knew Geneva's mother, Ellen Chambers, when they were kids.
And that one little detail just completely pivots the narrative. Suddenly, this isn't just about a past crime. It's forcing Geneva to investigate her own mother's pristine, carefully constructed past.
A past Geneva thought she knew everything about.
Exactly. So now that Lowe's back, we really have to spend some time on the public story, the official narrative that's held for 40 years, because that's what defined Lowe's entire life.
It's a classic sensationalized story, isn't it? The powerful, handsome politician undone by his jealous younger mistress.
Landon Fitzroy, destined for Washington, perfect wife, perfect political family, but he's secretly keeping a beach house, a love nest for Lowe.
The public couldn't resist that narrative. It was just too easy to cast him as the victim of this desperate, unstable young woman.
The tabloids, like the National Enquirer, they just ate it up. They painted Lowe as this master manipulator.
Right, and the prosecution's whole case was built on that theory. They argued that Lowe knew Landon was getting tired of his teenage mistress as his career was taking off.
So she made a final desperate play. They said she begged him to come to St. Medard's Bay during Hurricane Marie as some kind of final test of his love.
And the evidence they presented was all about signs of a violent fight.
Yeah, bruises on her arms that look very much like someone's fingers gripping her.
And a broken fingernail found in Landon's jacket pocket. They claimed she'd threatened him. But this is where the legal case gets interesting.
And it's really key for you, the listener, to understand why the case actually failed.
Exactly. The prosecution's whole theory faltered just the littlest bit because they never found a weapon.
No murder weapon.
And on top of that, their entire case was circumstantial. It hinged on destroying Lowe's credibility by catching her in these small, panicked lies.
And we should probably dig into those lies because they are what branded her for life.
She was caught in 2 lies that cost her her credibility. That's the phrase they use. The first one was about the phone calls.
Right. She claims she only called Landon's office once that day and only talked to his secretary.
But the secretary testified that Lowe actually called twice and that Landon took the second call himself, which suggests a much more urgent, intense conversation was happening than Lowe admitted to.
That lie immediately makes it look like she's hiding something.
And the second lie was about the bruises. She said she got them from falling while trying to board up a window at her mom's store.
Which was an easily disproven alibi.
Exactly. So by offering that weak explanation, she basically led the jury to believe the bruises must have come from Landon, which supported the prosecution's story of a violent fight.
So in the end, all these little inconsistencies, Plus, no weapon, no eyewitnesses to the actual murder. It ends in a mistrial.
And the DA decided not to retry it. He probably knew the case was too weak. So Lowe walked free, legally innocent.
But completely tainted by scandal in the court of public opinion. Forever.
That's the public story. But now we get to see the deeper, more self-aware truth in the memoir excerpts August has.
And Lowe doesn't deny her flaws, but she gives this counter-narrative that is so compellingly human.
Right. She acknowledges her beauty and its role and everything. This face is the reason I'm here doing this book. But she also stresses this profound loneliness she felt growing up.
And how the boys her age were basically terrified of her. She was powerful, but also really isolated.
Which is why Landon's attention was so potent. She kept his first letter to her for 40 years.
On that formal stationery.
Where he says she looked like I swallowed starlight. That's the key emotional hook right there. He didn't just see her, he romanticized her. That one phrase made her feel special, interesting, for the first time.
And she insists it was real love, not just an affair, which makes the whole thing so much more complex than the scorned woman motive.
She says it explicitly. I actually fell in love with the guy, and I think he was in love with me. And in the end, I guess that's why he's dead.
Wow. That suggests it was the depth of their connection, not the rejection of it, that was the really destructive force.
And to understand that destruction, you have to look at the political machine behind Landon. Lowe describes this chilling encounter with his father, Beau Fitzroy.
The patriarch?
Yeah. And Beau didn't even see Lowe as a threat. He just saw her as temporary, an easily managed problem. He gives her this ugly smile and says, like the last one.
Confirming she's just one in a long line of the Fitzroy men's conquests.
And what's fascinating is how Lowe uses that information. She starts to realize Landon wasn't just being reckless with her. He was actively trying to blow it all up.
To escape his destiny.
To escape the path his father had laid out for him, to become the next fucking president. He was suffocating.
And this creates this kind of dark, shared dynamic between them. They both had this need to push to see how far we could take something.
It's a tragic symmetry, really. Landon was trapped by his powerful family, and his desperate attempt to self-destruct dragged Lowe, who was also looking for her own escape, right into the eye of the storm with him.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the Rosalie in itself just reinforces this entire history of entitlement and danger.
Yeah, the inn is presented as this resilient fortress. It's the only beachfront building that survived nearly 100 years of storms. Delphine, Audrey, Marie.
So the local lore is that it's blessed or protected somehow.
But protected from what, right? Because that perceived blessing is complicated. The history of the inn's name, Rosalie, points to a much deeper man-made curse.
Well, I found this part fascinating. The Rosalie was a boat that sunk in the 1920s.
And it belonged to a relative of Landon Fitzroy. And this relative wasn't just a bootlegger. He was also Alabama's attorney general.
So he used his political and legal power to systematically crush any competition.
It's a staggering thematic link. The inn, supposedly blessed, is named after an act of Fitzroy corruption and entitlement from decades before Landon was even born.
So the curse of St. Medard's Bay isn't the hurricanes.
No, it's the generational violence and entitlement of the Fitzroy men, stretching all the way from that bootlegger to Landon's own arrogance.
And the inn becomes the central hub for this trio of girls who tried to find their own power outside of that toxic system.
The original friendship, Lowe Bailey, Ellen Chambers Geneva's mom, and Frida Mason.
They were inseparable. They formed this little sisterhood in the 70s.
They called themselves the Witches of St. Medard's Bay. It was a childhood game, a mantra they used to feel powerful. Lowe was the impulsive plan maker, Ellen was the sweet one, and Frida was the odd one.
And they sealed it by carving their initials, E-L-F, into a tree in the woods, a promise of loyalty.
But that bond was just brutally shattered by Hurricane Audrey in 1977.
This is such a key piece of the backstory. Lowe, the plan maker, convinces them to camp out during the storm, which was only supposed to be a brush.
But the hurricane turned inland unexpectedly, and while Frida's family was out searching for her, they died.
And Frida Mason, who later changes her name to Edie Vargas, she had this intense, lasting reaction to that. The sources are very clear. She didn't blame Lowe for the storm itself.
No, she knew that was a freak of nature.
But from that moment on, every impulsive or reckless thing Lowe did, she saw as selfish, careless.
Yeah.
The death of her family became fused in her mind with Lowe's fundamental nature.
And that profound 7-year-old grief and misdirected blame is what leads to the most critical act of betrayal in the whole story.
The trial.
The trial. Edie, the aging punk with purple hair who works for Geneva in 2025, she was the prosecution's star witness. And she lied. She explicitly lied on the stand.
This is the real shocker. She testified that she saw Lowe and Landon arguing violently right before Marie hit.
And she claimed she specifically heard Lowe threaten to kill him if he were to throw me away like a fucking gum wrapper.
And her motive wasn't about the Fitzroys. It was about settling a score she'd been carrying since 1977. She truly believed Lowe's selfishness was responsible for her family's death, and so it was probably responsible for Landon's death, too.
Which brings us back to Geneva's mother, Ellen, the supposedly innocent one of the group.
Right. Geneva starts uncovering her mother's secret life while packing up her things. She finds this box filled with lovingly collected clippings about the murder, about Lowe, about Landon.
It's an obsession, and it completely contradicts Ellen's public story that she couldn't even bear to look at reminders of the storm.
So why the obsession? The sources reveal Ellen had her own secret past with Landon, years before Lowe's affair ever started.
At age 15, Ellen met a 26-year-old Landon at the inn during Tropical Storm Velma in 1980.
He was already the polished politician, right? Charming, protective. He told her, "You're going to be okay," while they were sheltering on the kitchen floor.
And that one interaction started this powerful secret connection, a correspondence that went on for years.
But the sources say Ellen didn't realize until later that for Landon, she was just an audience. Someone safe to confide in, not a real partner, but for a 15-year-old girl.
That crush was transformative, almost painful, and it created the secret history that Lowe, the supposed villain of the story, knew nothing about.
And the final, undeniable piece of evidence that just shatters Geneva's entire understanding of her mother is the bracelet. Geneva finds this silver disc bracelet on Ellen's wrist in the nursing home. It has a delicate L engraved on it.
And then we find the letter that goes with it, from Landon, dated May 1984, just months before he died.
He confirms he sent her the bracelet. He says it was so delicate, so feminine.
But the letter holds the real bombshell. In it, Landon tells Ellen that he and Lowe are done, and he explicitly asks Ellen to meet him, saying, "I want us to be friends again."
Ellen was the other woman.
She was the other mistress, the one he was planning to go back to.
So Landon had completely entangled this whole trio. He was playing them both. Lowe was the passion, Ellen was the safe harbor. And that deception, combined with Edie's deep-seated grief and betrayal.
That's the tangled web that leads directly to the violence of Hurricane Marie.
Okay, so as we get deeper into the summer of 2025, the pressure just becomes unbearable. August, who's been digging through archives for weeks, starts pushing Geneva really hard. He's asking these pointed questions about the inconsistencies in Lowe's story.
Like why she lied about that second phone call.
Exactly. And the long-forgotten rumors that Landon was seeing 2 other mistresses besides Lowe. He is operating with the laser focus of a detective, not just an author.
And his intensity is totally justified when he drops the bombshell about where the body was found.
Right. He tells Geneva that Lowe offhandedly mentioned Landon's body was found right under the porch of the Rosalie Inn.
A detail that is missing from every single public account. Every news report just says a lonely stretch of coastline.
So Geneva checks her mom's meticulous box of clippings and confirms it. No mention of the Rosalie. Why would Lowe keep that secret? And how did August know?
And the sources just immediately reveal the connection. His full name is August Fletcher Fitzroy.
He's Landon Fitzroy's son, born to his wife, Allison.
So he's had access to private family documents this whole time, which explains his obsession with solving the murder and, defending his father's memory. He's not just writing a book, he's on a personal quest.
But the kinship connection goes even deeper.
Yeah.
Because Geneva finally puts the last pieces of her own puzzle together.
The L bracelet.
The photo of Fitzroy when he was studying in Geneva, Switzerland.
And her mother's hazy Alzheimer's-driven memory.
A friend of mine said Lake Geneva was the prettiest place he'd ever seen.
And I thought it was the prettiest name I'd ever heard.
And the truth just hits Geneva like a hurricane.
Landon Fitzroy is her father.
Which makes August her half-brother. He was the legitimate child, and she was the secret child from the affair. And they are both standing in the very place where their father died.
And as if on cue, Tropical Storm Lizzie starts approaching. It's a perfect mirror of the chaos of Hurricane Marie 40 years earlier.
The external storm reflecting the internal emotional violence. It's almost biblical. But before the final confrontation can happen, there's another act of violence. Edie's found bleeding and in a coma near the back porch.
The exact location August had mentioned.
And the immediate reflexive assumption, based on 40 years of history, is that Lowe did it. The known murderess attacked Edie for knowing too much.
And that suspicion forces Lowe's hand. She realizes this cycle of lies and suspicion has to end right now if any of them are going to survive this new storm.
So in the height of Hurricane Lizzie, trapped in the lobby of the Rosalie in August, Lowe and Geneva, the true story of 1984 finally comes out.
Lowe details what really happened that night on the porch, with her, Ellen, and Landon arguing in the driving rain.
And the core devastating truth is that Ellen wasn't just arguing with Landon. She had come to tell him that she was pregnant.
And Landon, in true entitled Fitzroy fashion, reacts explosively. He makes this horrifying demand.
He wanted Ellen to go hide the pregnancy, go abroad, have the baby, and then give the child to him and his wife Allison so they could adopt it as a Fitzroy.
He wanted the child for its political lineage. He didn't care about Ellen's rights or feelings at all.
And Ellen, who had been so caught up in this idea of a deep connection with him, suddenly saw herself as just nothing, a disposable vessel for his political future.
And in that moment of pure horror and rage, she grabbed the heavy 20-pound anchor for the inn's rowboat.
An anchor that had just been left sitting on the porch because Geneva's father had meant to fix its chain.
And she swung it with all her strength and hit Landon in the head.
The sound of the blow is described as something she'd never forget, just this sickening impact, almost lost in the howl of the storm. But then she just freezes, paralyzed by terror.
And this is the critical moment. This is the act of sisterhood. Lowe sees Ellen's terror. She knows Ellen is pregnant, and she understands what would happen to her friend if this came out. The big yellow mama, the electric chair.
So Lowe makes an instantaneous, life-altering decision.
She grabs the anchor and she finishes him off on the sand below the porch.
And then she convinces a shell-shocked Ellen that they were equally responsible.
It was both of us. She took complete control. She protected Ellen by pushing Landon's body into the surf, letting the storm carry it away from the inn, and then she took the public fall. She willingly became the scorned, crazy mistress to save her pregnant friend and her unborn child.
To save Geneva.
To save Geneva.
And the cycle of violence just tragically echoes in 2025. August, enraged, convinced Lowe killed their father and ruined their lives with secrets. He loses control.
He threatens her with a hammer.
But Geneva steps in. She physically stops him, stops her half-brother, echoing her own mother's protective act from decades earlier. She chooses to defend Lowe and this new terrible truth.
So Hurricane Lizzie passes, and it leaves behind massive physical damage. The Rosalie Inn is battered, roof ripped off, porch gone.
But the structure still stands. The sources describe it as weary and battered, but not done for yet.
Right, and in a sad little side note, Cap, the old fisherman, dies of a heart attack, but the community as a whole is relieved the storm wasn't worse.
And in the aftermath, we get the final piece of the 1984 puzzle. Edie wakes up from her coma.
She remembers everything, and she confesses to Lowe and Geneva. She admits she lied at the trial, and that she had been hiding nearby at the inn that night and saw the entire thing happen. She saw Ellen strike Landon first.
And her confession reveals her deepest motivation, the reason for that 7-year-old betrayal.
She was secretly deeply in love with Ellen. Her lie on the stand wasn't just about punishing Lowe for the Audrey tragedy. It was about protecting Ellen by destroying the person she thought was a threat to Ellen's happiness.
It's so complicated.
Oh.
And what's fascinating now is how Lowe handles her new fame. She is more famous than ever.
Oh, yeah. People magazine, dueling Reddit communities, Rosalie Inn and Rogus Fletcher. A Dateline episode is planned.
And Lowe, even knowing the truth, continues to fiercely lie in public to protect Geneva's parentage. She claims August was unraveling, that the family resemblance is a coincidence. It's this ongoing, conscious act of protection.
And for Geneva, the aftermath is much more internal, much more familial. She moves into Hope House temporarily to care for her mother.
And for the first time, she just allows herself to enjoy that physical closeness, that contact they never really had when Ellen was lucid. She finally knows the whole truth.
Landon was her father. Her mother was complicit in his death. And Lowe Bailey sacrificed her entire life to protect them both.
And that knowledge allows Geneva to finally break the cycle, to symbolically break the Fitzroy curse. She notices the L bracelet has started falling off her mother's wrist.
As if Landon's hold is finally broken.
Exactly. So Geneva takes the bracelet and throws it into the ocean, imagining it drifting down to the wreck of the Rosalie, the first ship tied to the Fitzroy legacy.
And the story ends not with more violence, but with this sense of reconciliation, the establishment of a new kind of power.
Yeah, that shared secret, that collective act of truth and protection, it binds the surviving women. Geneva, Lowe, and Edie are sitting on the beach together, a new version of the Witches of St. Medard's Bay.
And when Lowe says, "We'll make a witch of you yet," Geneva finally accepts her place. She squeezes their hands and says, "You already have." The secrets aren't burdens anymore. They're the bonds that have ensured their survival.
What an incredible journey this deep dive has been. I mean, we started with what looked like a straightforward true crime story.
And we discovered this deeply entrenched intergenerational family drama, all of it rooted in patriarchal entitlement and the fierce, complicated bonds of sisterhood.
Our synthesis really confirms that behind that sensationalized true crime story was a much more complex history of women actively protecting one another from men who tried to control them.
Landon Fitzroy wasn't just murdered by a jealous mistress. He was, in a way, killed by the Fitzroy system itself. The system that enabled his abuse and entitlement. A system that his two young lovers ultimately refused to submit to.
And the only way to break that family curse, the one that goes all the way back to the Rosalie shipwreck, was through this collective action and finally concession. And that's really the key nugget I want you to take away from this. The most destructive forces in our lives aren't always external, like a hurricane. They're often the internal generational secrets we keep.
Especially those kept to protect men who believe they own women and children.
Exactly. The world let the bad person, Lowe Bailey, take the public fall and sacrifice her life to scandal, while the seemingly good person, Ellen Chambers, was completely shielded by that sacrifice. The truth is almost always more nuanced.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought. Something the sources hint at for Geneva's future. We know that after Lizzie, Geneva starts getting calls from the wider Fitzroy family.
Right, the name just flashing on her phone.
She doesn't answer at first, but she knows they know where she is. Now, we saw that August, Landon's son, was willing to use violence to pursue what he thought was the truth.
So the question is, what kind of external reckoning is waiting for Geneva, now that she's been revealed to the world as another Fitzroy, when the rest of that powerful, entitled family finally comes calling?
What price will she have to pay to maintain the new, fragile truth of St. Medard's Bay that she, Lowe, and Edie have fought so hard to protect?
A compelling question to leave you with until our next deep dive. Thanks for listening.